Hey everybody, Gary Fong here in Las Vegas, and I am with the most amazing photographer. And so let me tell you how I got introduced to his work. You did a book called Portrait Photography. It was simply, wasn't it called?
Secrets of Great Portrait Photography.
Yeah, Secrets of a Great Portrait Photography. And my customer experience manager had it. And I think it had Richard Branson on the cover.
It did.
Yeah. And so I went through it, and I couldn't believe you had like literally every public figure in the world in those pages. Every single one of them was completely illustrative too. It was remarkable. So who have you photographed that? It seemed like it was everybody. So you could just answer with everybody.
Just a lot of our new closest friends, Anne Hathaway, Spike Lee, Sam Jackson, a lot of people that we've been lucky enough to spend a few minutes with over the years. It's, as a celebrity photographer, you sort of drop in and out of people's lives, but it's kind of fun to spend a few minutes and ask them the questions you've always wanted to know, loosen them up a bit.
When you say we, who's we?
Okay, so it's like my wife and I work together. She's the stylist and makeup artist, so we've been a team. We've worked together now for over 20 years.
Wow. Now you're in Miami, right?
Miami Beach, yeah.
Okay. How do you get all those celebrity gigs?
Well,
everyone's going to want to know.
It helps that the celebrities are starting to like Miami. So we do shoot on the road a lot. We've been to, I think, 100 countries over the years. But it's nice, like, locally, it's like more and more people are in the Miami area. So we do shoot a lot in Miami, LA, New York, kind of wherever they are.
And when you do this, is this for editorials, or is this for movie publicity, or?
It's a little bit of everything. It's like I shoot for a lot of publications, everybody from Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Time, People, but also for the different movie or TV companies. But actually, one of the projects that I really loved doing was really like a personal project, working with the Creative Coalition and in partnership with Sony. We did a book to support arts education, so I actually ended up photographing 250 celebrities for that project. We've got we had room for 123 of them in the book, but what makes it special is it's not just a portrait, but the book also reflected their handwritten thoughts about what the arts means to them.
Oh wow!
Which I'm sure you and I can relate. It's a shame to see like funding go through for everything, but be ignored for the arts. So It was a great project, and it was one of the easiest things to do, because that's like the icebreaker. It's like, it's like, how do you get somebody to relate to you? It's like the easiest thing is to have them focused on something they really love, and that was a great example of that.
Get the conversation started. So one of the things about your book that I always took home with me, and I've probably passed that message to thousands of people, is your quote that you said, in order to learn portrait photography, photograph how many strangers?
50 strangers. It actually was advice that was given to me when I was starting off. I was a stringer for the local newspaper when I was in high school, and I had my sights set on the big metropolitan paper of the state, and the photo editor looked at my sports photography and he's like, anybody can follow focus with the telephoto lens. Show me that you can capture people and their personalities. And honestly, that's really what photography is about, is making that connection.
Right. But your thing, though, it's a lot of skill. You do a lot of lighting that's really remarkable. Your style's very illustrative. It's not like they're all the same thing. Look, all your stuff really looks like it's meant for Vanity Fair. You know how they always have something that's just very illustrative.
I think one of the things, it's like I try not to fit everyone into the same approach. Like, I don't want to be known as the big head guy or the big soft light from the side. It's like I try to tailor the approach to who the personality is, what story we're trying to tell, and what the sensitivity of that particular publication is. So that's fun because it's different every day. We're not doing the same picture again and again, and it can kind of really be tailored for who it is that we're working with.
I think that's really important, because a lot of times when you go into a shoot with a filter on, it doesn't improve your skills because you have no chaos.
Yeah.
And I think it's the solving of the chaos that makes everything.
And I think being aware of that, because it's like a lot of times I'll go in with a game plan, but I think some of my favorite shoots are times when it's like either the subject rejected it or they were doing something totally different, that it's like that's far better than I possibly could have planned. So I tell people, to go in with a plan, but go in with an open mind at the same time. So if you've got that opportunity that presents itself, don't be so focused in your thinking that you miss a beautiful shot in front of your camera.
Plus, it makes you look really creative.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not too proud to take credit for somebody else's idea, but I think the good thing is that's actually one of the things that I learned when I photographed Art and Soul was as we were doing all these celebrity shoots. It's like, with a few exceptions, both the shoots were 5 to 15 minutes.
Oh wow!
And I would have panicked at one point where it's like, God, I've only got 5 minutes with this guy. What am I going to do? And then I realized it's like, there's something to be said for making the best picture that can happen in that 5-minute window.
Absolutely, right. It pushes you. It's almost like it's almost like you have a handicap, and then you have to overcome it.
Right, and sometimes it's those restrictions that make it seem like your hands are tied that allow you to be that much more creative. It's like sometimes when it's anything you want, you have months to plan, a full day to shoot. It's like you've got so much at your disposal, you don't know where to start. So sometimes it's kind of fun to what are we going to do today? And just really work from that.
I noticed that you spend an incredible amount of time talking about the features. I think you and I share the same passion. About.
I don't think this is news to anybody. Gary and I are super tech geeks.
Yeah, but I think you and I share that part where we feel like the engineers have done all this work, and yet it requires people like you and I to tell people how to grasp that technology. Because I've learned so much from your stuff. Well, what did you shoot before you switched over to Sony?
I was medium format shooter, so I shot with the Hasselblad H1, and with at the time then, this is circa 2008, what was the state of the art, a massive 33 megapixel digital back. So it was about a $30,000 digital back, add in the camera, add in the lenses. It's packaged about 50 grand.
Wow.
And really, for that time, it gave me everything I wanted. Some of the stuff that I looked for is I wanted dynamic range. I wanted the files that weren't overcooked. One of the things I didn't like before I switched over to Sony, one of the other brands sort of really over-process their RAWs. To me, that's getting away from the point of a RAW. A RAW ought to have all that data.
Dynamic range.
And it's so much easier for me to narrow that down and add that contrast and tighten it up than it is to try to pull detail that's not there. So I just wanted nice open files, and when Sony was developing the A900, I was kind of...
You went all the way back to the A900?
I was actually, the first one I shot was the A700.
Wow.
And I was able to shoot with it with a couple of the Zeiss lenses, the 135-1.8 and the 85-1.4 were out at that time. And they asked me, they said they were developing a pro camera, which ended up being the A900, and said, what do you think? And I gave them not so much critique of the 700, but I told them what pros expect, which was a body should feel, things like a body should feel rock solid.
Right.
And I like that's continued even today, where today if you pick up an A77 Mark II, it's light by comparison to other cameras yet. It's surprisingly, for a very small body, feels very sturdy in your hand.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. It's like you don't want something that feels plasticky, and that's the great thing. I know you and I have been meeting with the engineers from Japan, and the fact that they were here this week, and the product planners wanting to know what pros were looking for, and also the feedback that we were getting, what people were looking for from these cameras, that they are concerned at bringing out, developing things that make the user's life a better experience.
I think that's one of probably the coolest moments of my photographic career is to sit down with a product planner and they ask you, what would you like the next camera to have?
Yeah.
That's just you've got to be kidding.
Yeah, and actually that's always been my experience with Sony, the very first way when I was hooked. So I had started off giving this feedback. The A900 came out and they sent me a body and the lenses they had right now and said, no pressure, try it out, let us know what you think. And I and I really, really liked it, and I sat down, and I was expecting, I met with one of the engineers, and I was expecting him to say, you know, tell us how fantastic our camera is, but I remember distinctly what he said that day has been true from Sony from that day on, which was, tell us what we did right, tell us what we did wrong, and tell us what to do next. And I think that's really the Sony philosophy. It's they want to address the needs. They want to know if there's something that is not working the way that you want, so that they can correct that and change that on the next round. And they're always looking for the next thing that in a lot of cases I never thought possible. I mean, tell me, like with the focus system of the A6000, before you use that, I've seen the great videos you've done where you've shown using the face recognition for focus tracking. That's incredible. Had you ever thought of that?
No, absolutely
10 years
not.
ago somebody would do that.
In fact, I'll hand the camera over to one of my Canon or Nikon buddies. You know what they'll do? They'll instantly dumb it down.
Yeah.
They'll
Right.
deactivate the features because they've never heard of something like focus lock and tracking. It's just never been possible before.
Yeah, and especially what I find really amazing is in the A6000, this is not features that are in an $8,000 body. This is a camera that sells for under $600,
right?
And yet has a focusing system that beat the $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 cameras the other guys are putting out.
Oh, right. So, I know you shoot the A7S because I've seen your ISO 100,000 raw process images, and I know you shoot the A7 Mark II. What else do you shoot?
Well, my workhorse for the last year, the camera that I really have loved is actually the A7R for the resolution. It's like that's that medium format camera that fits in the palm of your hand, and couple it with Sony Zeiss lenses.
No anti-aliasing filter.
No, yeah, and that's the key. A lot of people don't realize it's not just the megapixels, but 36 megapixels, big megapixels, because it's a full frame sensor.
Right.
And the fact that now you're starting to get into the pixel pitch that you're able to remove the anti-aliasing filter. It's kind of got to be the smaller the pixels are relative to the scene, you're able to remove that and not experience moire.
Right.
So it's just that incredible sharpness right out of camera where we've made 40 by 60 and in some cases 4 by 6 foot prints from it.
Wow.
And, put them up on the wall in front of a lot of photographers. And unlike the regular person who looks at a 6 foot print from 8 foot away.
Right. They'll walk right up to it.
It's like this is the viewing distance of
exactly.
6 foot print. So that's the great thing is like being able to stand back and have somebody look at it and look back and go like, yeah, that's there. So
who was your first celebrity that you shot?
I spent 10 years as a newspaper photographer, and we did, one of the things as newspaper photographers, you shoot a lot of the press tours.
Sure.
So when a new movie comes out, typically what they do is, they take the director, the lead, the stars, the key people from the movie, and they lock them up in a hotel suite for 12 hours straight, and reporters come in, and usually the photographer gets the last, it's like half-hour time slides, and the photographer gets, if you're working with a nice reporter, you get the 5 minutes at the end.
Right.
If you're working with a jerk, you get 1 minute or 2 at the end.
Right.
So I was shooting lots of people that way, and it was cool because it
gave you the confidence
cool, but it wasn't, I didn't want to be the guy just standing off bounce flash like everybody else. It's like, here's a 2-minute picture. So I'd probably shot some before, but the one that I really distinctly remember was kind of a turning point for me was I photographed John Huston when Prizzi's Honor came out, and he was legendary film director, and as we did the shoot, he said, do the pictures at the end. I want to concentrate on the interview, which was great for me because it's like,
you can understand.
I will set up out here while you do that. So he walked out of his interview expecting that I would do bounce flash like every other photographer, and I had a big softbox set up, and was as it was the wall of the hotel was like pristine white, so I didn't have to set up a backdrop, but I had big setup comparable to everybody else. And he looked at it sort of aghast, like, what are you doing here? Isn't this a picture for the newspaper? And I just looked at him and kind of, like, the best thing you can do is think on your feet. And I said, well, there's small pictures, they're big pictures, but this is a John Huston picture, which is the biggest of them all.
Right.
And he kind of like did a, okay, all right, we'll do this. But I also realized right at that point that the expectations, if I stayed a newspaper photographer, it was always to be that 2 minutes at the end of an interview, and I wanted to get away from that. So I moved into doing magazine photography because, like, even if I've got 15 minutes with the people, they realize it's a big deal. So they're going to make it a great 15 minutes. And, you know, being used to be able to work in that time, it's like the time I have an hour or two with somebody, it's like, this is great.
You got to know what you're doing. You got to get in there.
But when you have that extra time, it's like, wow, we can do so much in an hour, which is great. So,
do you do any workshops or any training? Because I would love to watch how you work. And
we do I do lots of speaking appearances, like we're doing here at WPPI and a lot of the trade shows. Earlier this year, I did like an afternoon during Photo Week. I did something for Creative Live, which was really fun because we were trying to figure out the dilemma in terms of releases with all the stars that I shot, and so we decided, instead of doing the typical presentation of this is what we've done, we did a half-day live shoot of the folks from Creative Live.
Wow, cool. Are we...
So now we have the opportunity, you get to double up here, so Gary is going to stand here, and I'm going to hand this off to the wonderful Mike Cologne.
Well, I'm glad we got this on tape, because I've never really been able to sit down. You know that I admire you, and I think you're
well, we
obviously
sat down over drinks before, but it's probably good.
But not like this.
The camera was not rolling, so this is much better. So
it's been a huge honor.
Thank you very much, my
You're the
friend.
best.
It's always great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.